Welcome back to Ted's Tools. So today we're going to be working on my Triumph Speed Triple again. So this is a 2005 model and I've owned this bike for 5 years. One area I haven't been 100% happy with has been the front brake. They've generally been strong enough, but there's always been a slight delay when I've pulled the lever, as if they're sort of a little bit sticky, and they're not particularly consistent either. I've bled the lines a few times and that has helped quite a lot, and also I've replaced the fluid every year or two. As the bike is now 16 years old, I'm going to be doing a full overhaul of the front system today. So I've bought some nice new braided lines. Of course, if these were to fail while you're riding, you're not going to be able to stop the bike. It would be pretty dangerous. You're almost certainly going to be quite severely injured. And they don't have the split systems that cars have to give yourself that little redundancy. So it is, literally, if that line were to split open, you might be dead. I'm also going to be taking the calipers off. Previously I've tried to fix sticky pistons by taking the pads out, just pushing the pistons out a little bit and then trying to clean them up within the caliper. Again, which helped for a short amount of time, but it didn't help a great deal and they soon went back to their old ways. So we'll take a look at the pistons and I'll probably be replacing those as well, unless they look really good when they come out. Some OEM pistons and seal kits. So the good thing about these is, firstly, they're new. Secondly, Triumph upgraded these a few years after this bike was made. So these were originally made for the 675 Daytona, and they've got some sort of a coating on them. I don't know exactly what it is, whether it's some sort of a Teflon or something like that, which I'm told makes quite a big difference as well. Should be fitting those. Quite an expensive part. And I've also got the high performance new braided brake lines, which is from a local company around here called HEL. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'll also be putting in a better brake fluid, DOT 5.1. Whether that'll make a difference or not, I don't know. And other than flushing it through, I'm not going to be touching the master cylinder. So quite a few things are going to be changing. I'm hoping it's going to make a big difference to the overall performance of the brakes. So we'll first go and take a look at the tools and equipment we need to go and to do this job. So before you start this job, I've got two safety tips, or two things to check. Firstly, have you got a torque wrench? So to cover the required torque for my bike, I'm going to need to cover between 6 Newton meters for the bleed nipple, and I think it's 55 Newton meters for the caliper mounting bolt. So I'm going to need two. I'm going to need the higher range one and the lower range one. So make sure you got those. Some people will take a chance and they'll be happy to do up the fasteners on their motorbike just by feel, which is fine for the most part. But for things like for your brake system, I really wouldn't take any chances. I wouldn't personally ride a bike which hadn't had a torque wrench used on all of the fixings. If it were to fail while you're going down a country road at 60 miles per hour, you're probably going to overshoot the corner. That's the first warning. Second warning, make sure you feel happy and competent to do the job. So check the dealer manual, check the online advice, and whatever else you might need. Any doubt whatsoever, please just take it to an authorised service dealer. So yeah, not the place to take chances, and it's not a particularly cheap job to do this. I don't know exactly how much it would cost at a dealer, but yeah, the parts are quite expensive. So now for the job, what I've got is some new braided hoses. So these come from a local company which are quite highly rated, but they sell through eBay, so I'll put a link in the description. So I went for the OEM replacement with this T-split in the middle. So this will fit in exactly with your existing line. I would just offer it up to it before you start removing things to make sure it's going to fit. They also sell a like a double line. They call it like a race line, which is 2 lines down from the master cylinder all the way down to the calipers. So some people like those. I wanted to keep things looking stock. And there's also like a load of different colours and things like that if that's what you're into. But yeah, I just wanted to keep it stock. So that was like 90 quid. The double lines are about 60 quid. Not cheap, but hopefully they'll make a big difference. It also comes with replacement banjo bolts and the crush washers, which is handy because mine aren't looking the best really. I did just try the spanner on them earlier. They were a little bit corroded. So stainless banjo bolts. I've also got replacement pistons. So these are the upgraded pistons from the Daytona 675. So on the 2005 speed triples, they were known to get a little bit sticky and corrode a bit, whereas these have got some sort of a coating on them, which is supposed to make them a little bit better. So yeah, these weren't a cheap part either. So if you can make do with your existing ones and clean them up, by all means. I'm going to be replacing mine. Make sure I get that improvement. They've also got the seals. These came in the same pack, but you can buy them separately. The seals for the calipers, so you need to replace those if you're going to be splitting them. So the final replacement part or consumable is brake fluid. This is what's currently in there, what I've been refilling the bike with for the last 4 years. So that's .4. So I'm going to be putting in this .5.1. So it's meant to be a little bit better than .4, something to do with it boils at a slightly higher temperature, so if you're really racing it, it will prevent fade and things like that. Don't know how much difference that's actually going to make versus .4. There is a big error trap here, so .5 is not compatible with this or with .4. So if you were to dump a load of .5 into your system, even with a small amount of .4 residue, it can go quite lumpy and it can block up your braking system. So don't use .5, but .5.1 is also compatible with .4 and .3. So that's what you're going to be using, but that's fine as well. So for your tools, you'll need your socket set and the spanners. So for the bleed nipple, that's a 5mm socket. So you're going to need that to torque it up, but you'll also need a 5mm spanner. And the reason for that is you can put that around the bleed nipple and you can then put the hose on top of it. Therefore you can undo and do it up again and keep the hose there in place so you don't get air drawn back into the system. So you can't do it with just a socket. The banjo bolts are 14mm hex heads. The caliper mounting bolts are 8mm Allen heads. Again, if you were to use something like this, that's fine to get the caliper off, and you might be able to get a little bit more leverage around it as well, but you're not going to be able to get it to the correct torque with that, because clearly you can't put a torque wrench on it. So so that's what you need really. My socket set came with one, but you might have to buy an individual otherwise. The master cylinder joining bolts use this 6mm Allen bolt. So the brake pad retaining pin is a 5mm one of these. I don't actually have one of those, so what I can do is use a 5mm sort of one of these screwdriver heads and one of these adapters, so I can mount that onto a quarter inch drive. So that's what I'll do. Yeah, you're also going to need things like you're going to need some hosing that fits over the bleed nipple. You're going to need some jars or old bottles to catch the old fluid in. You're also going to need quite a lot of rag and some sort of blanket or something to protect the paintwork. So this brake fluid will strip the paint if you strip it onto your bike, so be careful with that one. Yeah, you should also be using some gloves. I've already got one on because I've cut my finger, so I don't want to get dirt in it. But brake fluid can be carcinogenic. It's not the nicest stuff to get spilled on your hands. So yeah, I'd wear some gloves as well. And hopefully that's all. I might end up needing some sort of compressed air or some other tools to get the pistons out, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So let's get on with it. So my plan is to put this cable tie around this freezer bag like so. That way hopefully I can undo this, put that around and catch any of the residual fluid without it going anywhere else. So let's give that a go. The hex head is quite corroded on mine. Easy as that. Just use a bit of brake cleaner on it just to clean up the calipers. Okay, let's do the other side. Right, same again. So now, just before we take this top bolt off, just to avoid pumping a load of old fluid through our nice new pipes, I'm just going to try to empty out the master cylinder. Some of it will come out in the bags at the bottom, but that doesn't really matter. So just let gravity feed that through. Okay, so we can see that the reservoir is now empty. So all of the liquid should now be gone from the master cylinder and the reservoir as much as possible. There'll still be some in the hose, but doesn't really matter as we're going to chuck that away anyway. Leave that in there for now. So while we're here, just let that siren get out of the way. So while we're here, we might as well just get the lid of the reservoir off. So you'll just need a screwdriver. Might as well clean out any residuals. Okay, so both ends are disconnected of the hose, so we can now just take that out and start work on the calipers. Caliper removal. Don't know what that is. So we've got two caliper mounting bolts, and they take an 8mm Allen key. And a good idea to have some rag around, just in case it gets a little bit messy. Some people recommend loosening the actual caliper joining bolts before you take the caliper off. They're a little bit awkward to reach on this bike because they're right behind. You've got to get right in there behind the wheel. So I'm going to take them off and give it a go anyway. I do have a vise, so I think I'll be okay, but we'll find out. So. Try and hold it upright, otherwise the fluid's all going to leak out. Easy as that.